This is a robbery for the Phoenix Suns as Matt Ishbia and Brian Gregory just pulled off a big-time move as they just claimed Jordan Goodwin off the waivers as he was recently released by the Los Angeles Lakers. And this is going to be a big move for the team as they reunite with a guard that they once traded for Bradley Beal, now comes in with Bradley Beal out of the rotation. So what does that mean for Goodwin, and how could he fit into Jordan Ott's system, and what could he represent for this Phoenix Suns team on his second stint back in the Valley? We'll be getting into all of that and more on this episode of Suns Digest. I'm your host, Bruce Veliz, and I really do appreciate all the love and support you guys have been giving us down below in the comment section, letting us know your thoughts on the Phoenix Suns moves. And in my latest video that I uploaded today, I talked about the team could be making moves anytime, anywhere. And we did see one transpire today, and this is what you got to stay alert for with everything revolving around the Phoenix Suns to get your updates here on Suns Digest. So if you want to make sure you get all the little tidbits, hit the subscribe button and let us know what you think of the Jordan Goodwin signing. Without further ado, let's dive in and let's explore the latest update, as this is very nice not only for Phoenix Suns fans for what Jordan Goodwin can represent, but ultimately I do think is a nice happy reunion for a player that I think could make a pretty solid impact for this Phoenix Suns team going into this season. So as we see, the Phoenix Suns have claimed former Lakers guard Jordan Goodwin off the free agency waivers, and this was reported by ESPN's insider Shams Charania. Goodwin was waived by the Lakers to create a roster spot for Marcus Smart, with obviously waiving Shake Milton as well. But he is a gritty upside pickup for this Suns backcourt. Goodwin last season for the Lakers proved to be one of those scrappy defender guards who in his minutes was, in some points guarding some of the team's best players, offensive players, and was holding them to pretty solid defensive metrics there at that guard position. He also is a little bit of a scrappy guy, and I think could be someone that could kind of find a way into this new Suns team within this new identity. We do see from Bobby Marks from ESPN and the Cap Guru over there that Goodwin, obviously with being claimed from waivers, is going to still be getting his $2.3 million contract this season that he was guaranteed from the Lakers. That will now be going and being paid by the Phoenix Suns. The $25,000 that was dead cap money that was guaranteed on his deal that was going to be on the Lakers books has now been taken off. And since he has been off the waivers, this is no longer a fee for and now he's off waivers. It is no longer a fee for the Lakers now that he is on the Suns. This is a good value claim from Bobby Marks, who ultimately says there is no risk in bringing in a guy in Jordan Goodwin back to the Valley, and I would ultimately agree with that statement from Bobby Marks. We want to look at the Suns offseason roster, looking at their rotation, which we've looked at plenty of times through this entire offseason. Goodwin slots himself into that tertiary guard position, playing behind or either alongside a guy in Colin Gillespie to compete for some backup point guard / two guard minutes when guys like Jalen Green or Devin Booker need some rest, potentially have some injuries throughout the season. Those are guys that are going to be looking to fill in. Gillespie, ultimately, in my opinion, is a little bit more of an offensive creator type guy, can work in the pick and roll, can kind of set up the offense, can be a little bit more of a distributor, where Jordan Goodwin kind of complements the offsets of what Colin Gillespie does bring. Gillespie obviously does play pretty impactful on the defensive side. He gives that hustle, he gives that fight, but he is a little bit smaller of a guard, and obviously with a smaller frame, isn't easily to be as relentless as a scrappy defender, where Jordan Goodwin obviously offsets that with having some limitations on the offensive end. Now, Goodwin can kind of stretch out, hit the open three ball to an occasion, which I do think the Suns will value within this lineup, having guys like Devin Booker running this point guard and maybe Jalen Green back cutting, having some guys there out on the perimeter for some open three-point looks here and there. But ultimately with Jordan Goodwin, in my opinion, I think he's going to be falling into that tertiary guard spot, playing behind guys in Colin Gillespie and Grayson Allen, and potentially filling in a role or need for this Phoenix Suns team if they do need that defensive scrappy point guard / two guard to kind of play in, to kind of stop an opposing offensive guard that is really totalizing the Phoenix Suns and just demolishing them on the offensive end. That's where I think a guy like Jordan Goodwin can kind of make an impact. I don't think he's going to be, a key backup guy for this Phoenix Suns team, right? I don't think he is going to immediately slot himself into this rotation, but I do see that he will be fighting and competing for his spot in this rotation, which you could say very amongst the like of everyone on this Phoenix Suns roster is going to have to do. Obviously, guys like Devin Booker, seeming like Dylan Brooks, Jalen Green, Mark Williams, they seem kind of cemented into that starting five. Ultimately, I don't think Gillespie will start. I think he will come off the bench, and we can see either a lineup with either Ryan Dunn or Uso Gardaro, depending if they want to go double big or double wing there. But guys like Nigel Hayes-Davis, Royce O'Neal, Rasheer Fleming, they all need some burn. They all need some run. They're all going to be competing for some of these wing rotational spots here within the Suns rotation. You also got a guy in Grayson Allen who I think is kind of isolated there by himself in that reserve guard position. But if you move Gillespie to the bench, now you add Jordan Goodwin to that bench for that team. You have Jalen Green and Devin Booker there. There obviously does limit his ability to kind of step up and play. Obviously, maybe he does slot over a guy in Jordan Goodwin to start, but the shot's not really there, and Jordan Goodwin's presenting an element on the defensive end that they do need at that guard position. He could lose potentially his role or even lose some of his minutes in that role, which could really affect how he could play for this Suns team. So ultimately, when you say it all and done, I do think the acquisition of Jordan Goodwin is a good one for the Phoenix Suns, specifically with claiming him off of waivers and just getting him basically for that $2.3 million contract that he was owed with the Lakers last season. Yes, you do help the Lakers by, claiming the money off the books, not letting him go to free agency and negotiating a new deal, but ultimately with claiming him off waivers, you eliminate the process of those other teams that would be interested in Jordan Goodwin to negotiate those contracts and to potentially give him a deal that is maybe a little bit more worthwhile than you're willing to pay. I do think for $2.3 million, like I mentioned, for a guard that's probably going to be the 9th, 10th, maybe 11th guy in the rotation here, potentially getting to see some minutes to make some impacts in some regular season games for the Phoenix Suns, I do think that this is a nice flyer risk to take on, specifically with the fact that he's been in the Valley before. Let's not forget that Jordan Goodwin was a part of the Phoenix Suns and played with this team, and then was included in that Bradley Beal trade, sending him to Washington. Now, he's had some stops from Washington, but in Washington and even LA, he proved himself once again to be that scrappy defender and to be that relentless guy on that defensive end, which I think the Suns are really going to value, right? They want these bulldogs. They want these guys that are going to be relentless, giving their effort, not quitting, not giving up in the second half of the games, not coming out in the third quarter and looking dead. And a guy like Jordan Goodwin is going to bring that energy, specifically for the fact that he's fighting for a role too, right? He's not guaranteed a spot on this team, so he's going to be continuing to not only fight to keep his name in the NBA, but to fight for a bigger contract, regardless if it's in the Suns rotation and staying in the Valley and kind of cementing himself a role within this team, or testing free agency and trying to find that elsewhere in the open market. And with the Phoenix Suns, I think this is a great risk to take. Ultimately, if Jordan Goodwin doesn't pan out, he enters free agency next season, you took a flyer and you lose the $2.3 million. Now with him being added, the Suns will go over this tax threshold. We do see them at $187 million. They will now be above it. They are still underneath the first apron still, so that gives them the access to the non-tax mid-level exception, the biannual exception, and multiple other options here in free agency to still use that last roster spot. But the Phoenix Suns could be done rolling with this 14-man rotation going into the season next year, or they could still have some things more up their sleeves regardless in the free agency market, filling that final roster spot, or even potentially looking at some guys out there, giving them some non-guaranteed contracts, bringing them into training camp, having them compete for that final roster spot, or some trades still brewing with the names of guys like Grayson, Royce, and maybe even Nick Richards as still some guys that are losing their value in these rotations, and ultimately I do think we'll see reduced minutes if they do stay on this roster regardless, and I think could provide some potential value for some other teams out there in the NBA that could give them some better roles. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section on the signing of Jordan Goodwin. I think this was a fantastic move by the Phoenix Suns. This is a low type guard, similar to the ones like I mentioned in a Delano Banton that you're kind of taking a risk on, and I think Jordan Goodwin has proved more than Delano Banton has in his time in the NBA, so that makes me more intrigued, and I would give this signing an A- for the Phoenix Suns in my personal book. And Brian Gregory, I've always been saying since day one here, you can look back on the channel to believe in him and to give him at least the time of day to make these moves, right? If he messes up, we can all crucify him, but at least give him the time of day to sprout his thinking. And so far, I'm liking what he's done so far. So I'm very happy with the Suns offseason. Even if we're not going to see a championship contender, I think we're seeing the right moves being made. So let me know your thoughts, like I said, down below in the comment section. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Have a great rest of your night, and go Phoenix Suns.